Hey, what's going on, WBSC? The Whiskey Network is pleased to bring another live edition of To the Whiskey Network and WBSC. I'm Chad, and always with me is Bill Varnell, co-founders of WBSC and the Whiskey Network. Also joining us is Julia Menn, who is the assistant editor to the coolest lifestyle whiskeys magazine there is, the WhiskeyNetwork.net. Go there and subscribe if you will. Tonight, we have a very special guest, somebody who I admire in the whiskey world, who works with probably one of my brands that is really up there to me, Old Forester. Tonight, we have Jackie Zykan, Master Taster for Old Forester's brands. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
It is.
Awesome.
We're excited. We are happy to have you here with us, Jackie. Thank you so much for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule. I know Derby is coming up and you've just been nonstop since the 117 released. So we're very excited to have you here. And while Women's History Month might be over, I think we can all agree women have always been a very integral part of the whiskey industry, and we always will be. So it's really terrific seeing companies and mindsets changing and women finally being acknowledged for our contributions to the industry. And so that kind of kicks off where I wanted to start with you tonight. As a powerhouse woman in a typically male-dominated industry, how does it feel being a trailblazer in the whiskey world and having your name on a bottle of Old Forester? What are your thoughts on that? And just elaborate, if you would.
So, thank you. I'm speechless. I just show up to work, you know, I don't really think about it too much. I just do what I do. But this particular bottling was definitely a new level for my career. Let's put it that way. I know that it's just ink on paper, and I know that at the end of the day, like, it's just the label, and like the label isn't important. The stuff inside the bottle is what's really important. But the fact that I am able to really be able to be as associated with something as high quality as Old Forester in that intimate of a setting where my name is on the bottle of that delicious liquid is just, I'm still adjusting to it. I think I keep forgetting that it's there, and then I see it randomly and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that day signing a blank piece of paper and running it through a copy machine for the label people to put on. So I don't know, it's great. And I mean, what better launch of doing something like that than an innovation series, right, where we can have a little bit of fun with the brand. So
Absolutely.
So Jackie, can you tell us what led you to your current position as a master taster with Old Forester? I mean, where'd you get your start? What was it that brought you to where you are today?
So I didn't grow up like dreaming of being a master taster. I didn't know it was even an option. I mean, maybe things would have been different. Maybe I would have been here sooner. I don't know if I knew that it was actually a feasible option, but I spent about 10 years in the bar industry and really worked my way through networking with other brands, and saying yes to every opportunity that came my way to just do sort of what I like to call shaker for hire gigs on the side. And so that, coupled with an educational background in chemistry and biology, that just kind of set me up to be a great candidate when Old Forester came time to decide they needed somebody to be able to speak on half of the brands that understood it from the production side and the science side and the granular side, but also from the cocktail side and the buyer's perspective, because that's where I was a beverage director prior to this job. So all of those things kind of merged together. Being in Louisville doesn't hurt. There's a lot of brands that are based here, and you get to know sort of everyone in this industry. It's a very close-knit community. So the right place, the right time, and the right experience, I guess, everything kind of bubbled together. And then here we are, right? Talking to you fine folks, drinking whiskey.
Right on.
Yeah.
So a little follow-up question to that. What was the process like with Old Forester to become a master taster?
Sure. So there is an actual established program at Brown-Forman that they have put into place, because I am not the first master taster they've ever had. Prior to me, there was Marianne, who then went on to Castle and Key and now kind of like does her own thing. Elizabeth, who's now the assistant master distiller at Woodford, was also a master taster prior to her role. And Peggy No Stevens was sort of our first master taster. And we've had others. We've even had Jack Daniels has had Master Tasters. So it's a role that they're familiar with, and we all kind of come from different backgrounds, which is the most interesting part about it all. I'm the only one that actually has a bar background to them, so that's kind of nice. And I never knew that was going to lead to that, but okay, here we are. There's a very in-depth sensory training process that you go through to make sure that you are able to identify the defects in very, very small concentrations in the products for quality assurance purposes. And then also there's the fun part of it, not that it isn't all fun, but the writing of the tasting notes and the articulation of those things. So they do put you through quite a bit of rigorous training on isolated notes in different products as well. And then full force production training. So you have to know every element and every step of the entire kit and caboodle.
That sounds awesome. Wow.
It does.
You kind of already answered the next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway to see if you can elaborate a little bit more. When did the spark ignite the fire for you to become a master taster?
Well, so I joined the brand almost 6 years ago, and that role was master bourbon specialist. So it was this sort of like brand ambassador hybrid of what I do now mixed with more brand ambassador kind of work. And when the new home place was being built down on Whiskey Row on Main Street, I think it was literally the first 4 days on the job that I had to go to this ribbon cutting ceremony, and the entire Brown family from all around the world, they were all there. And they had the most beautifully decorated cookies that were shaped like bottles of Old Forester. And it was just, like every single detail of this event was just buttoned up. And to be there and to see the excitement and the passion and just the love that everybody had for this brand, which to me, I was like, it's just Old Forester, right? It's just a good brand, right? No, it's so much deeper than that. It really struck a chord with me just to see this everlasting commitment this family has had to this brand and the legacy of it. And I, in that moment, thought to myself, what a challenge, but a good challenge, and a challenge that I want to just master, of sort of making sure that this is always protected and done right. And so I told Campbell that day, as soon as those doors are open, I will be the master taster for that brand. And he was like, oh, okay, I guess that's okay. So that's what we're doing now. Okay. Little bartender girl wants to be a master taster. Okay, I guess we better get you trained up, and then no turning back. So here we are.
Oh, well, that leads perfectly
Awesome.
into my next question. So you've been noted for your off-the-charts palate, and I would love to hear more about how you developed that skill and the ability to taste and profile whiskey. So obviously you did have training in that, but did you also come to it with a strong skill set, or just tell us about the whole evolution of that section of things?
Sure. So there's two parts to palate development, right? There's how many taste buds you already were born with, and then there's learning and articulation of each individual sensory stimulus, if you will. So I've always had a sensitive palate. I got really fine-tuned into training it, if you will, and sort of paying attention to picking out different notes once I was with the restaurant group I was with prior to this job with Falls City Hospitality. One of the owners was a master sommelier, and he really kind of took me under his wing and was very, 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 very beneficial to me, for me to have that relationship, because I learned so much from him about all of it. So once I started getting myself into the zone of being able to taste, and then of course becoming a buyer for a group that had French concept, a whiskey bar concept, an American steakhouse concept, the products you are sort of fitting into your bar program are just across the gamut with that many different types of restaurants that they had. And so tasting everything, every rep brought in, taste it, think about it, taste it, think about it. You just start to train that way. Tasting and smelling everything is definitely part of it. But outside of that, I say this to everybody, taste and smell as much as you possibly can. And that doesn't just stop at whiskey. It's food, it's candles, it's perfumes, it's everything. And think about it and be present. And when you're experiencing anything in life, just make sure you're always, this sounds so strange to say this, but just make sure you're always smelling around, because some of the best moments of tasting whiskey that I've ever had with people is when they really can connect with a memory and an emotional connection that they had. Oh, this smells like, I had this really crazy aunt once, and she used to bake these oatmeal raisin cookies, and I couldn't stand the cookies, but I remember the smell of her kitchen, when it just takes you somewhere. That's the beauty of tasting whiskey. It's not just like, oh, I get vanilla, I get almond, I get this, I get that. Like, that's boring. But the second you can sort of connect with people on an emotional level by bringing those memories to the table in just a silly little glass of whiskey, I think like that's just divine in such a great way.
Couldn't agree more with you. I associated certain whiskeys I've had throughout my life to different events or different places. The kettle corn stand at the local carnival or what have you. It's really nice when one does really strike that. So, as I stated earlier, I'm a huge fan of Old Forester. I've had some old Dusties dating back to the 60s. Some of the current releases, the 150th batch 2 is superb. I think it's such a wonderful, beautiful whiskey. I like to refer to 1920, for example, as the latest chip of bourbon. Bet you can't have just one sip. What are some of your personal favorite expressions of Old Forester?
Well, okay, I get asked this a lot, and I never know what to answer. So I've had to come up with a strategy to this answer, and it has to be, which one do I drink the most of, right? Because if I have access to all of them equally, I drink the most of the 100 proof, just the everyday, the orange labeled proof.
That's the signature. Is such a sleeper bottle that people. It's $22. It's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal for the flavor, for the proof point, the price point on it, everything about it. It is hands down just my favorite workhorse of the brand. But 1910 is so unique and it is so exceptional. I do love it so much. And you know what I always forget about that we have is the Statesman. I love the Statesman, and I just always forget that we have it. I shouldn't say that too loud; it'll get offended. But oops, I love the Statesman.
I think the Statesman with the label kind of gets pushed to the side of the pack because I'm kind of the same way. The signature, I'm actually a fan of the Bottle and Bond. Truly love that one. I actually just killed one the other day. I need to get more.
Thank you.
The 1910, like I say, it's a unique one. I remember when that came out along with 1920. Well, after 1920, me and one of our writers a while back were having this back and forth. I'm like, why wouldn't you go with this? It's $5 more. Well, this has this going on. I'm like, I just don't get it. And we just had this back and forth for months. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to find out what he's seeing in this bottle. And I finally picked it out and it was like, oh, this is so different. This is, wow. And now they're all, I have pretty much the entire lineup at my house at any given time. And I think, once again, it's such a fantastic brand and the things you guys are doing are so innovative.
Thank you. And thank you for keeping it, stocked and ready in hand.
Oh, absolutely.
One of my favorites is the 1920. I like that one a lot. But I've got a couple of questions from our members that are watching right now. Mark Pruitt asks, can you share a favorite memory or story in your time with Old Forester?
Oh my gosh. And it's perfect timing for this question too. So the president of Old Forester, Campbell Brown, who is my direct boss, is now moving on to be chairman of the board of Brown-Forman. And so in this past week, we had our goodbye Campbell it was supposed to be a staff meeting. He thought he was going to a staff meeting. And then we just kind of like showered him with a roast. But going through all of the pictures over the years and all of that, I'm going to start crying if I get into too much. So I'm going to stop myself. It's going to be fine. There are too many to count, but I will give you one that I probably shouldn't. So how about that? We'll give you a juicy one. That's not like a soppy memory road thing. It's Campbell has now come to know me as being somebody who is very vigilant and excited when I think something is wrong. And not that I want things to be wrong, but just that I don't want to say I'm an impatient person, but I am still a very zesty human being. So the first go around of birthday bourbon that came through under my involvement with that product, I remember tasting the sample straight off of the first bottle off the line, cracked it open and tasted it and freaked out completely and immediately called Campbell's like, we're ruined. We're destroyed. We're completely ruined. Everything is wrong. This is the worst bourbon I've ever tasted. This is absolutely, I don't know what's going on. He's like, whoa, wait, what happened? I was like, I don't know what happened. This is not the birthday bourbon we picked. Barrels in the blend. Something is wrong here. I don't know what's going on. And just, he like pulled a lever out of nowhere, stopped the entire process. Everything froze. Everything stopped in its tracks. Like, Jackie says something's wrong with the birthday bourbon. Oh my God, we're ruined. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the birthday bourbon. So a funny little thing happens when you use carbon treatment to filter your whiskey. That's what we do. We don't use chill filtration. It makes a very sharp, vibrant taste to it. It takes about a week or so in the bottle to settle down. I obviously had never tasted a bottle straight off the line to know that that was the case. And so now I take my samples and I wait my turn to actually crack them open. And I learned my lesson, but there was almost no birthday bourbon one year because of me. And welcome that there still was, I guess. I don't know, but it has happened since too. It happened with the 117. It is yet another process of me just freaking out like, oh, what is going to happen? I don't know. People are going to hate it. But it was just too soon to taste it. Whiskey dumped and then gone through the line and filtered fresh is very, very sharp. Very sharp. Interesting.
All right, we got another question from another viewer. Actually, there's two, but I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to let you answer it. This is from Christine Nielsen, and she says, is there any chance of obtaining a bottle of the 117 series? I'm in the Southwest and only saw it available at your shop in Kentucky.
So here's the deal with the 117 series. It is meant to be our distillery only series. It was intended to actually be something that you could always find at the distillery and something you can't find anywhere else. We didn't plan for it to be sold out in 3 or 4 days, but c'est la vie. So there will be more expressions that come out. Unfortunately, though, for this member of yours, that it is a distillery / Kentucky only product for now. If we start to incorporate it into our e-commerce site or website where we can actually ship, and I don't know if where she's at is a shippable state, though. It's not every state that we can ship to.
Yeah, she said she's in the Southwest.
Okay.
I'm surprised that it lasted 3 or 4 days. I thought you'd sell it out in a day.
Well, we had a lot of it. Like there was a ton and we were letting people buy, I want to say 3 or 4 bottles at a time. And it lasted that because it was meant to last until the next one releases, which I can't say when that's going to be because I'll get in trouble, but it's coming up. So
One more question from one of our members, Richard De Los Rios. Who is the person that you have met that you were like, wow, how did working in whiskey get me to this point?
It's actually somebody that he recently retired from Brown-Forman and, cause I know the expected answer out of this kind of question is like celebrity, right? Like, so we had so-and-so as our guest. I don't know. I met Elton John. That was pretty cool because we did the Kingsman movie, right? But again, though, it's just like, does Elton John remember like, oh, remember that time I met Jackie Zykan? No, he's like, so does it count? Nah. But being in this position allowed me to form a really great learning relationship with a man by the name of Brian Gregory, who is our quality assurance guy at the Brown-Forman distillery. And hands down, taught me more in the short amount of time I was actually able to spend with him than I could have learned from any schoolwork from anyone else ever, hands down in the entire industry, period. He was a straight shooter, no BS. This is exactly what it is. Just, every now and then you meet somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, your mind, just, I can't even fathom how your mind works that way. Just a genius of a human. I'm sad that he's retired. I'm happy for him that he's retired, but I would have never been able to actually meet him because he just worked at BFD, right? You don't see him on us and what have you, but brilliant guy.
All right, my question before we go back to Julia is, where does the 117 series fit into your list of favorites?
That is an interesting question. I'm happy to offer it up. It is a deconstructed blend strategy, so I am happy to share that and that educational piece with everyone. But as far as flavor profile goes, I mean, I think it's delicious and I think it's very interesting. Once I add a little bit of water to it, I like it even better because it starts to get really rich and creamy and texture changes. But like I said earlier, like I'm not like crushing bottles of 117 at home. It's the 100 proof signature.
Okay.
Cool. Well, why don't we dive right in? What can we expect from this high angel share? Tell us about it.
Everything. You can expect everything. So these barrels are all low yield, and low yield means different things to each distillery, just like small batch does, right? There's no technical definition of low yield. For us, these are barrels that did not qualify to go into the single barrel program. They're about 33% or less yielding on average. So what you end up with after that is a super, super concentrated flavor profile and very, very oxidized notes as well. So even though it's a small bottle, a little bottle of whiskey, it's got the flavor of a large bottle of whiskey. You just have to open it up and stretch it out and peel the layers back. So this is basically like bourbon concentrate. It is going to be really, really, really intense and really dimensional. And there's a lot going on. Like I said earlier, one drop of water even completely changes the palate texture of it. It's incredible. And then it just keeps going and going and going the more and more you add. Of course, all those nice sort of, when I say like oxidize, your fruit notes become a little bit more stewy or jammy and less fresh and ripe kind of situations. The acidity is a little bit different in this. There's a lot of anise going on, but that's just Old Forester flagship. There's a lot of desserty notes that come on up front. And at the 110 proof that it's bottled at, it's going to have a very, very spry green note to it. That herbaceous note from the 18% rye in the mash bill really, really drives in. So, but I'll let you taste it. You tell me. I don't know.
Yeah, let's taste and talk about this 117 series. I'm really looking forward to it. This has been sitting in my glass for about, I don't know, 25 minutes. Might have been a little long, but I was excited. So here we go.
That's okay.
And I don't have a Glencairn, so I'm not going to get the proper notes. So I'm going to rely on Bill.
Yes, you will. You'll be just fine. You'll be fine. I'm sipping out of a.
We were talking about it before before you came on, and Julia made a good point about lots of baking spices in it. There really is, and the caramel. And I smelled bananas on the nose when I first picked it up, and I had poured it like 20 minutes before we came live. So it's got a wonderful nose. It's definitely an Old Forester, if you'll pardon the expression, signature. There's a lot of different whiskeys that have their signature nose and palate, even though it may be a little different based on the mash bill. But it's definitely Old Forester. There's no doubt about it.
Without a doubt. And I will add a note of caution when you go to nose your whiskey, do not snort it.
No,
this burns.
Cannot recommend
just for the record.
On yeah, as Bill was saying, I'm getting cinnamon, pepper, allspice, cloves, dried coconut, and dried cherry in here. I'm just really loving all the layers, as you mentioned. It's super complex. There's a really lot going on here.
The one thing I pick up, and it's very, very faint, it's a slight citrusness to it. I don't know if it's like, you like twist up an orange peel and rim the edge of the glass, but it's super faint and super light. But that's something I'm picking up above all the classic bourbon notes and the spicy stuff that you typically get in an Old Forester product.
And now that you mentioned that, I'm picking that up on the very end.
Some nice brown sugar, very soft brown sugar notes on the end, and yeah, just that lightly fruity note too. And
let's dig out. Let's dig out that citrus note. I want to get into that a little bit deeper, if you're cool with
it. Yeah, please.
So Yeah, if you focus in on it and only think in your mind, so forget about all the spices, forget about all the green, forget about all the desserts, forget about everything else, and just think to yourself, is it orange? Is it lemon? Is it grapefruit?
Lemon.
It's lemon. Okay. Anybody else?
It's definitely a cross between an orange and a tangerine.
Yeah, I'm getting more orange notes versus lemon.
I'm getting a little bit more lemon, like a tartness almost to it. Almost like
So
your
lemon
mouth wants to
oil.
water a little bit, possibly.
Like lemon peel, not so much like a lemon meringue pie. You know what I mean? Super
Sweet. It
sharper.
has that sweetness, but it has that
Mm.
tarty sharpness, as you said.
I love it. Yeah, we always have lemon and orange present, and it's always very, I don't know, I just love to see what people find, you know, because they'll find different things.
I'm loving the leg
So-
on this. I haven't even tasted this yet, and I've had this bottle for weeks, but I've been good. I've been holding back.
I've
just for this
had
moment.
half the bottle.
Yes, I gave Chad half the bottle because Julia got a bottle, I got a bottle, and then I split my bottle with Chad. But man, the legs are phenomenal on this, and I can't wait to taste it because viscosity in a whiskey is very important to me. And I can just see this is going to be dynamite. So what do you say, Chad?
Say cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Let's taste it.
Oh, baby. Yes.
That's a sexy
Spicy.
old Forester that just caught me.
Ooh.
It'll hug you pretty hard, this one. This one is a lover for sure. It's
Oh my God.
It drinks hotter than 100 proof.
there's a lot
I-
of that's
Definitely right back here.
yeah.
Yeah, it really like
Oh
went
my.
right there deep.
I'm
What
getting
a
a really
long
intense
finish.
coffee note coming through this time. I
Coffee.
had it earlier when I first tasted it for the article in April, which y'all should go check out, WhiskeyNetwork.net. But it's really coming through today.
While you're checking that out, please subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm getting on the such a long finish. This is just beautiful. The toffee, and there's that banana again, and some brown sugar. Just a beautiful finish on it.
Yeah, real
I'm
nice
personally
flavor.
trying to find that citrus in the palate, and it's very deep in the finish. And I'm trying to correlate the two, whether it's lemon oil, lemon meringue. What's going on here, Jackie? Talk to us.
It's all of the things. It's definitely all of the things. It's just sort of what's fresh in your mind. And yeah, with this one in particular, Bill, I'm really excited for you to add a couple drops of water. If you're a texture nerd like I am,
I'm gonna do that too.
I don't even have to say it. You'll see it will happen on its own. You'll see exactly what happens. It's remarkable. It's great as it is. This is as high of a proof as I felt comfortable going because it did start to get a little too, as they say, hot on the palate. Any higher than this? I know some people have commented, why didn't you do it at barrel strength? It's like, trust me, you don't want concentrated barrel strength because number one, it would have been hazmat level. And some people out there are like, well, what's bad about that? You shouldn't drink things at that level. There's a reason it's not, you're a human, you're a living organism. Take care of yourself, you know, it's fine. But 110 is as low as I could go, but still giving people the ability to go on this journey of opening it up on their own, right? I don't want to cut to the point and have you miss the entire experience, right?
The water does change the viscosity of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I
It
like that.
changes the nose slightly to it. I don't want to say it mutes it, but it softens it up.
Yep.
It mutes the finish for me, but it opens up the flavors on the initial palate, but it mutes the finish.
Yeah, I find it sweetens the nose, softens and sweetens the nose. All of those spices aren't quite in the fore anymore, and definitely much softer on the palate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a lot more with a little water.
So I added water also. I didn't find it as muting the finish or the palate. I think it really added a complex layer to it because you get this softness as you first take it in, then you get this nice quick buildup in mid palate of your tongue, and it just stays there, and all those little subtle notes really hang out, and there's a lot going on. 40 seconds, 50 seconds after I took that sip.
Yeah, it's still there without a doubt, but maybe it just muted the intensity of the finish for me. The finish is still there. It just really softened it up.
I find it made it rounder and almost not richer, but more full. There wasn't quite as much of a sharp through line because of all the spiciness and the heat. It made it more mouth filling to me, adding just 3 drops.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely gets creamy. It gets oily. It gets full is a really great way of describing that, for sure. It is, it's interesting. It kind of inflates it a little bit, but in a way that's not, in a way that it all just sort of balances and sings a little bit better together. I don't know. It's very interesting. You think to add water, you're going to end up, thinning something out. And with this one, you actually wake it up quite a bit, and the viscosity just completely shows up, and it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one that a couple drops does a lot to. It's great straight out of the bottle, but as you're exploring new whiskeys, it's always good to fool around with different glassware, add in a little bit of water, maybe an ice cube. Shh, don't tell too many people. Well, some people get, I know. But it's always like, that's what I do when I get a new bottle and I'm like really trying to get to know the bottle, especially if it's a brand I have no idea about. But yeah, I think a little water worked wonders in this.
This is delicious. I wish I could buy a bottle of it.
I'm sorry.
It is what it is.
Or it won't be the same batch, but
Jackie, I'm happy I got to taste it.
Well, I'm
There you
very
go.
thrilled to be able to have the experience to sit down with you, Jackie, to try this. I thank you so much. This is actually, I took off work early to be here for this tonight.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
So I have another
They
question.
know? Do they know you took off early to drink whiskey?
They don't need to know nothing. They know nothing. They know nothing.
So with the 117 series, are all of the batches going to be angel share, or you're gonna zazz it up a little bit?
So they will all be isolated blending composites, which I think is great. So when you can do innovation in the way you want to, it's innovation, right? You can get as weird as you want. But sometimes I feel like people get weird just for the sake of being weird. And that's not really what I wanted to do with this. I wanted to be able to actually showcase kind of a side of the blending world that I get to see that most probably don't. And just these fragments of different blending techniques that we use, whether it's a warehouse location or a warehouse in and of itself, or different types of barrels or yields of barrels. They all have their own nuances. So it won't always be high angel share, although I still have quite a few little fragment barrels hanging around. So I'd like to do another run of this because I need to get them out of the way. But there will be other stuff coming, and there will be other stuff coming within this year. I just can't say when because I'll get in trouble. But there will be something more. It's something that will be unexpected, yet once you see what it is, will be like, oh yeah, of course they would do that. That's all I'm gonna say about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, once again, you guys are doing some of the most phenomenal stuff in the distillery. Once again, I'm a fanboy of Old Forester, so I'm excited about all the new little products or projects you guys got coming out, new bottles you got coming out soon, and everything that we look forward to. And as a whiskey enthusiast, I'd like to say, Jackie, thank you for sharing a pour with us. WBSE and the Whiskey Network, both, we truly appreciate sitting down, talking about your whiskey, talking about your successful career, and I'm sure it's only going to continue to blossom and bloom. And you are a rock star in the whiskey industry. And let's raise a glass.
Cheers to you.
Remember, everybody crack a bottle and share a pour. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.